Right. Hey everybody, this is our third Neurodiversity Panel. Thank you guys for all coming out here. It's the third one that I've hosted, and it's the last one because I'm about done with my term, and then Sebastian's going to take over as president of Alabama Autism Advocates. So it's very exciting to get to do it again. We appreciate you guys all coming over here. I know some of you are here for like the Greek point opportunity. We're going to show that a bit later. And we don't expect, it's a 2-hour thing, we don't expect everybody to stay here for the entire time. But just generally just try to be kind of like polite about it, right? Don't make too much noise as like you're leaving. Try not to leave like the moment we put it up or something. Just general stuff like that. Anyways, this is for any of you who I don't think, some of you have been to our previous panels, but if you haven't and don't know the format, what we're going to do is we're going to start off asking some general questions to our speakers, just about when they were diagnosed, if they were, or like what conditions they have, what some of their experiences are like, just some general stuff to give y'all kind of an idea, and then we'll open it up. We have a, let's see, this is to submit questions. It's totally anonymous, so you're all good. And, you know, I mean, obviously try to be polite with it, but also don't hold back a question because you think like, oh, that might be, like, we want people to be able to understand all of these things better from this presentation, which is not possible if y'all like don't ask questions that y'all are wondering about. Let's see, what else? And yeah, we'll be over here figuring out how to ask each one. So anyways, once we've gotten through.
Oh, we also want to explain what neurodiversity is.
Yeah, we'll get to that. Yeah, so once we've gotten through some of our pre-written questions, we'll go over to the questions y'all have submitted, and then just depending on how things go, we might do hand raising later on, just depending on how many people are in here. Anyways, just some basic like terminology, just so we're all kind of on the same page. Neurodiversity is just the idea of like different brains, think autism, ADHD, like bipolar, think Tourette's, think anything just broadly like a brain that like functions differently, like from birth. I think from birth, there's also, that's at least what we're covering. There's some nuance to it. It's a very broad umbrella term. But yeah, neurodivergent specifically is referring to somebody who is not neurotypical. And neurotypical, I'm sure you can guess, is just somebody whose brain functions pretty standardly with the general population, right? No conditions that you could point to and be like, that's something that deviates from most people.
So examples of neurodivergent conditions are autism, ADHD, bipolar disorder, dyslexia, dyspraxia, and a lot of other conditions.
Yeah, and it's a very broad term, so don't think we are most certainly not representing everything that would be considered neurodivergent up here because we are limited by being a student organization, right? And that's also just would take a lot of resources to get that many people here with that many different perspectives. What else? Stimming, if somebody mentions that, that's self-stimulating behaviors. So think like with ADHD, fidgeting, or like autism, like flapping your hands or something. We can go more into that later, but that's just what that term is referring to. And then masking is the idea of like masking aspects if you're neurodivergent, of hiding it and trying to appear more normal in order to fit in and avoid stigma. I believe that's all the terminology that we need.
Yeah, I think that's good.
All right. All right. So from there, we'll just kind of go down the line, and we'll just have all of you just introduce yourself, name, major, what conditions you want you have that you're going to be talking about. Yeah, I'll let y'all. Do you want to start, Lexi?
Okay. Hi guys, my name is Lexi, and I'm a senior studying criminology and psychology, and I was diagnosed with autism and ADHD at the age of 6.
Right, hello. Hello, I am Amelia Covington. I am actually a graduate student, so I got a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering from here in last May, and now I'm a first-year math PhD student. I am autistic, and I have a neurodivergent adjacent eating disorder called avoidant restrictive food intake disorder, or ARFID.
Hi, I'm Noah. I'm a senior majoring in religious studies. I was diagnosed with ADHD and bipolar disorder at 7 years old. And bipolar does not commonly present that early, but it did in me. And I suspect I may have autism, but I've not been officially diagnosed with autism.
Hi, I'm Nadia. I'm a junior studying addiction and recovery. I was diagnosed with ADHD at 6 years old and autism at 18.
All right, now that we've gotten those general introductions out of the way, let's just kind of go same down the line format. Let's just, what was getting diagnosed generally like for you? Because I believe everybody here is diagnosed with, or if you were diagnosed with the condition, what was that process like? And if you aren't diagnosed with the particular condition, what are the reasons behind why that's just not the right choice for you in your view? And so we can start with Lexi.
I feel like I don't really have a large opinion on this because I was so young when I was diagnosed, and I don't think I really understood the scope of my diagnosis until later on in life. My parents, I'm sure they mentioned it maybe in passing or something, but it wasn't like a big, oh, like, honey, this is what's going on or anything. It was just kind of like you just need to go to these therapies and do these things because your brain works a little differently, and we have to figure out why.
I'm sort of similar with autism in that I was diagnosed, I don't know exactly when. I believe it was when I was a toddler, so I don't have any experience with the diagnosis process other than my parents didn't tell me until I was in high school. So that's just not something that I even dealt with until high school. When it comes to ARFID, I kind of want to just give, if I can, just a brief sort of explanation as to what it is and how it affects neurodivergence and autism. So ARFID is an eating disorder that is not affected by body image or self-image. It is an eating disorder with three main pillars. So there is food paranoia, where you're scared of a bad thing happening, like choking or an allergic reaction. There is a pillar that is you're just not interested in food, and then there's a pillar that is heavy food sensory sensitivities. A lot of neurodivergent people can have the second two, and I have the second two. Getting diagnosed with this was difficult because I'm not formally diagnosed, because a lot of people just haven't heard of it. This was a feeding disorder in infancy and early childhood for the longest time until 2013. When doctors just, realized that it doesn't stop at early childhood. This is a thing that continues with you your whole life if not treated. So I have been to many doctors, and I've had two that have ever heard of it or dealt with it before. I got very lucky in finding one. So the diagnosis process has been a lot of doing research online, looking up official criteria, and over the course of a year, sort of discovering that this is what's going on.
So I don't remember being diagnosed that well. My main memory when I was 7, I went to this very nice woman's practice, and I did a full neuropsych evaluation, which I remember doing a lot of math problems for the IQ test and answering questions about how I felt about different stuff, past things that had happened to me. I think my mom probably filled out a lot of questionnaires and stuff too. I don't know all the details around the timeline because I was very young, and I have had trouble forming memories from when I was very young because I was full of childhood trauma. But I remember my mom telling me that this was around the same time, she was talking to a psychiatrist about getting me on medication for my impulse control issues, and I was not actually officially diagnosed with bipolar on my chart when I was 7 because it was not commonly accepted at the time in the psychiatric community that 7-year-olds could have bipolar. It was thought that it only developed around puberty. But the psychiatrist told my mother, I'm going to write unspecified mood disorder on her chart, but she has bipolar disorder, I could tell. And then later when I was 14, they updated unspecified mood disorder to bipolar disorder. So he was right on the money. I have never been officially diagnosed with autism. I have seen multiple psychologists since who have told me that they think I am autistic. And when I got another full neuropsych eval done when I was 18, just to get an updated picture, the person wrote on the report that I had, quote, autistic tendencies and did not diagnose autism. So I don't know what that means. I don't know if I just don't have a severe enough case of it that they can confidently diagnose me with autism. But that was kind of my experience being diagnosed, and I've never gotten an autism diagnosis, and I don't really feel like it's something we're pursuing at this point because I've mostly managed to figure out ways around stuff, and I don't feel like I need autism-specific accommodations at this point, and it's not worth the effort to get diagnosed officially.
I'm going to quickly just add in there, just because I think there's an interesting thing to clarify for anybody who's never been through the process of getting diagnosed with a neurodivergent condition, is that there are a lot of policies within the general psychiatric community that were very outdated and existed until recently that have stopped a lot of diagnoses. So, for example, I have autism and ADHD, and up until, I believe, like 2013, 2014, you could not be diagnosed with both of those, right?
I was diagnosed with ADHD in 2010. So.
Yeah, and so now now people generally recognize that those things can co-occur, but for the longest time, without really much clear reason as to why, those things just could not be diagnosed together, and you kind of just had to pick your favorite, I guess, right? So that stuff is very important to kind of clarify because not everybody's very aware of that. Anyways, sorry to interrupt.
It's also now very there can be long waiting times for getting a diagnosis, and it's also pretty expensive. So those barriers exist as well.
I was diagnosed with ADHD when I was 6. Basically had a teacher that told my grandmother that I should probably get tested. And she took me into my pediatrician who referred us wherever we went, and I did all the testing. They were the computerized testing, and they were like, she definitely has ADHD, but nothing really past that. And then when I was 18, I had a couple of friends that had autism, and I was like, maybe I was misdiagnosed, but I wasn't really wanting to lean into it that much. And then I saw a psychologist or a psychiatrist that referred me to autism testing the first meeting I had with him. And I got the full neuro eval where he was like, yeah, you've definitely got autism. So.
Also, because I don't think it specifically, and if any of the speakers want to comment on this, feel free to let me know. I don't think this is applicable though from the Q&A to speakers here, so I'm going to just answer it myself. Can you get a diagnosis as an adult? And you can. A lot of people do. It's become more common nowadays. The only issue is that it becomes more difficult to do so. There's a lot of places that just don't diagnose over a certain age. I believe if you're trying to get an autism diagnosis, there is no place in Tuscaloosa that can diagnose you past age 18. So you've got to go to at least Birmingham. And like Sebastian said, it's a very expensive process. It's a process that is very emotionally intense for a lot of people. I mean, you're having somebody evaluate some of the things that you have been raised on the idea that they are flaws and deficits with you. So it just becomes much more difficult in a lot of different ways when you are an adult. But there are plenty of people who are diagnosed like that. So that is 100% something that you can do.
I wanted to also say, there's a lot of stigma around having autism or ADHD as an adult. Some people think it's a disease for kids. For example, if you go and Google tips for managing ADHD on Google, you'll get a million stuff where it's how to help your kid with ADHD, how to help what to do if your kid is diagnosed with ADHD, how to help your kid manage their ADHD. There's not a lot of stuff for adults with ADHD to help with their own lives. Same with autism. It's my kid was diagnosed with autism. What do I do? but there isn't a lot of resources out there for autistic and ADHD adults to help them kind of have independence and manage their lives on their own terms.
I will also say, like, what the question was asking. I know for me, because I got diagnosed at 18, I got referred by someone in Tuscaloosa. But even still, it's a lot harder to get something like a referral or anything like that, especially around here or in other places where they like have the cap of like 18, some places are even 17. Because like Noah said, like people still think it's a kid disease. So they only want to treat the children. They don't want to try to give someone a diagnosis at 18, 19, 20 or above.
And that's made even more difficult by the fact that it may be better by this point, but at the time when I was trying to get diagnosed, I was 18, right on the threshold where once I turned 19, that was it. And the wait list for the autism clinic here at UA was about like 3 to 4 years, so there was just no way to do it there. And that's not that they've done anything wrong. There's just not a lot of funding for those things, and just not like a lot of awareness about the fact that there are so many people who just aren't able to get diagnosed. But yeah. Anyways, let's see. Okay, so yeah. Since we are on the topic of diagnosis, how did the process of like knowing you were neurodivergent from a young age impact you? In what ways did that did that put like a label on you? Was that something you weren't really aware of until later in your life? I think y'all get kind of the gist of what I'm asking. Lexi, we can start with you because I know you wanted to talk about this.
Yeah, I think that I don't really tell people, and I've kind of been conditioned to not tell people why I think the way I do from a young age, because there is so much stigma around having autism, and there was back then a big stigma with ADHD, but it's kind of become one of those terms where people are like, oh, haha, I got ADHD, I just forget things and stuff, but autism hasn't reached that point. It's one of those things where people just kind of assume you're a little weird and odd. And I think that that's really hard. And there's a certain aspect to it where there's levels of how autistic you are. And I'm not really sure how they work specifically. But when you tell someone you're autistic and you don't meet the expectations of what they assume, which level, like when some people assume autism is like this level where you're just like flapping around all the time and I don't know, making noises and stuff, and you just think a little differently and you're very odd. So when you kind of are good at masking and you present as somewhat normal and you're like, oh, I have autism, people are like, oh, so you're just weird. Like it's not like a fun autism for people anymore. It's like you're just weird autism, and it's not. People feel bad for people who are more autistic than they do people who are on a lower level of the autism spectrum. And I've had multiple experiences where people are just like, oh, you're just strange. Like, I don't think, why should we feel bad for you? Like, you're just a little bit abnormal and not like, oh, like we should feel bad for you, like you should get help. And so growing up, it was hard to kind of like talk to people about it, and I didn't fully understand the scope of my diagnoses or anything. So it was just like like she's a little weird. And if my parents told someone, they would just be like, oh, that's so sad, be nice to her.
I want to comment on something you said, Lexi. Just because there's less stigma around ADHD now doesn't actually make it easier to tell people I have ADHD, because the issue with having very severe, disabling, until very recently unmedicated ADHD, that it significantly impacts my life, is that because people think it's just like a fun, quirky thing, or they're like, oh, I'm like a little silly and hyperactive. When I tell them that it's like making it difficult for me to succeed in school, they like don't understand it. They think I'm making an excuse for laziness. Like, people don't see ADHD as a big deal, which makes it difficult to be taken seriously when you say that your ADHD is causing you significant problems. So I wouldn't necessarily say that even if ADHD is less stigmatized, it still is more stigmatized in other ways to have like severe ADHD.
Yeah, that's an important thing to note. That's why it's important to have a lot of different perspectives, and why I would not take anything you hear here as like that's the definitive experience of this condition for everybody who has it. Stigma can look a lot of different ways, right? It can look like somebody not wanting to hang out with somebody because they're autistic. It could also look like somebody only wanting to hang out with somebody because they're autistic, right? It could look like somebody who is not accommodating somebody's like needs, and it could look like somebody who is kind of like treating that person like a child, right? Instead of an adult. And so it can look very different for different people, and it's not usually coming from a place of any like actual like ill intent. It's just kind of not being fully aware of the information around it. But yeah, that's an important thing to know. Nadia?
Yeah, I also wanted to talk about, like, because I know we're bringing up the stigma of, like, your diagnoses. In the age that we are now, the, like, people, there are still people that think, like, autism is overly diagnosed now because it wasn't diagnosed, especially in women, like, years ago. And so now it's like the stigma behind like the boom of autism is what I've heard before of like, you're not autistic, like you just do something differently, or everyone's autistic now, or like that's the kind of stigma that you get, especially that's what I faced going back home after getting an autism diagnosis. Because it's not showed up in women very often. I know we have a full women panel, but like it's a lot harder for a woman to get diagnosed because, I mean,
autism presents differently in young girls because they're socialized differently. They're often better at masking, so it's harder to tell that they're autistic because they're kind of forced into these narrow social roles and like punished for not conforming, so they learn to mask at a much younger age.
Yeah. And it's also important to note that a lot of the research that we have, that's our diagnostic criteria is based off of for things like autism or ADHD, are based off of how people viewed it at the time, right? So a lot of people, when they think of like autism, I'm going to bring them up again, is like they'll picture like Sheldon Cooper, right? Which like, if you look like that, right, if you look like not quite, but if you look like a younger like white boy, right, you're more likely to get diagnosed with autism or ADHD than somebody who is not one of those things, right? And even how you present it is different with different people. So a lot of our research is just coming from a flawed place, and we still kind of like haven't really updated it as much. So that's also a part of the reason why you have this disparity in diagnosis.
The other thing is there's a lot of politics around like diagnosis, and the thing I always see cited is white children, especially white boys, are way more likely to be diagnosed with ADHD and autism, and then Black and Latino children are way more likely to be diagnosed with oppositional defiance disorder, which has a lot more stigma around it, but what we call oppositional defiance disorder is often presents in similar ways to ADHD and autism, but there's a lot more stigma around it, a lot more abuse of people with oppositional defiance disorder, and it's kind of seen as like the bad kid disorder versus autism and ADHD. People are more willing to accommodate it. So it's not a coincidence that people who are like Black and Latino are more likely to get with this like really stigmatized label, and white children are less likely to get it. It's like there's a lot of racism tied up in like the medical field and diagnosis.
Does anybody? I've got. Does anybody else have anything on this question, or are we good to move to the next one? Oh wait, do you have something?
I don't think specifically on this one.
Okay, awesome. So I'm going to combine, these are two Q&A questions. I'm going to kind of combine them because they're pretty related. One is how is being neurodivergent changed your college experience? And then the other is just what barriers have you faced while in college when it comes to getting educational supports or mental health supports, things like that. Just the resources available to you here at college. How have those helped with it?
So, sorry.
I was saying to point to you.
Oh, okay.
My bad.
So I have ODS accommodations, but only for my ADHD. So I get extra time and a quiet space when I remember to actually sign up for my test. But I will say there have been professors that I've had that I'll come up to them to tell them that I have accommodations, and then they'll immediately be like, I already got them, and they'll be very dismissive. They still accommodate it, but they're not willing to talk to me or ask is there anything that I can do to make this better? And also just when I first came to college, I didn't know we had any resources for literally anything. There was the board in my dorm, but that was about it. I didn't know of any resources until I went out and saw them for myself. And even though I'm a junior, so I don't really feel the need to add any more to my accommodations. And as I get higher level, there are professors that are a lot more accommodating and that will ask questions for further to help. But I think overall, coming into college, having one neurodivergency and about to leave college having two, it definitely changed a lot of how I viewed college, and the bigger class sizes and everything. From high school, I had 12 people in my classes. I only graduated with 100 kids. So sorry. I just got really distracted.
You are all good. That happens.
My own brain distracted me. Yeah, sorry. I lost my train of thought, so
okay.
We can come back to you.
I have never needed extra time on tests ever. I am a very fast test taker, and something about the testing environment kind of activates my hyperfocus, which is a very fortunate position I am in. But it means I also really struggle with longer, more longitudinal stuff because I can't stay focused for that long outside of this very specific environment. So I often I'll get work piled up. I'll have trouble focusing for longer periods on an essay that might take multiple hours as opposed to an hour-long test. So freshman year, I'm in Blunt Scholars. If anyone is in Blunt Scholars, you know that the freshman year seminars are no joke. You have to write an essay a week in those, and you have to do a lot of reading. And I was really behind in not just that, but a lot of my classes because I had so much work piling up. And I was able to get one-time extension from the professors, but it was very stressful. I was getting a lot of points docked for being late. And I went to ODS, and I was like, hey, this is something I had in high school, actually. In high school, I got an automatic 3-day extension on every assignment because of these issues. And that kind of let me, if I was falling behind, I could take a few extra days to catch up. And I went to ODS. I was like, hey, I had this accommodation in high school, and it really helped me. I was wondering if we could get that on the books at college. And they said they weren't allowed to do that because they, quote, didn't want to give anyone an unfair advantage. And I was like, well, what about my unfair disadvantage? And they were like, sorry, it's our policy. We can't do that. So I've never been back to ODS since because I'm like, well, you guys can't help me with what I actually need. They were very rude to me, too. They were very dismissive. So I am not a fan of our ODS services, and I think that needs to be improved upon a lot, especially for people with ADHD who might have different needs that they're not willing to accommodate.
I will also say I had the same kind of thing my very, very first appointment with ODS, and then I requested a change of my advisor with ODS, and that helped a ton, especially with, I never considered any kind of extensions, something that's in my brain now, but I have been very fortunate for professors that have read my ODS accommodations and then asked if I needed anything else, which is what I was trying to say earlier when my brain stopped working. But I think the communication between ODS and professors relies heavily on the student doing the work, and that's very annoying. Because I'll be like, I have to do that, and then it's 3 weeks into the semester, and I'm like, I never did that. And it relies very, very, very heavily on the student actually doing the work.
Yeah, and I will say that something on that is the fact that in general, a lot of the things you have to do to get those accommodations are like locked behind the wall of something that would already be hindered by something like ADHD, right?
Like appointments.
Yeah, like scheduling, remembering to keep on top of all these different accommodations that you need, meetings with your accommodation specialist, making sure you do it well in advance so it doesn't fill up. A lot of executive functioning that's required going into it for accommodations that are supposed to help you with deficits in executive functioning. So it kind of already locks it behind a wall where it's not impossible to do, but it ends up becoming enough of a hassle for a lot of people to where it just doesn't end up feeling very worth it. Anybody else have anything to add to that, or should I move to the next one?
I mean, on that note, because I have already been through all of undergraduate college, and now I'm in graduate college, so I can comment on that. I also never interacted with ODS. I never had accommodations in high school. I never had accommodations, like, officially, basically, ever. I think my family's attitude was just sort of, you'll figure it out, and hence why I wasn't told until I was, like, in high school. So I don't think that they realized some of the struggles that I went through, and so I've hit a point where now I'm at college, and I'm stubborn enough that I'm like, I have made it through this. I can make it through it again, which I would probably definitely benefit from some accommodations. That's just a lot of hoops to jump through to actually get accommodations that I'm like, I don't even know if I would benefit from, I suppose. When it comes to, like, I guess how autism affected, like, my undergraduate, it's a lot of, I guess, balance. It's absolutely a lot of balance in, like, grad school, because now I'm doing classes, I am a TA, I try to have a social life and hobbies as much as I can. And so, like, that first week where I was a TA, I was like, I can't do this. I'm working 13 hours on top of however many hours of classes I'm taking. Like, this is a lot. So it's a lot of figuring out what balance looks like so I don't just burn myself out first week and then just stop trying or stop showing up, because I can't make that work.
All right. On that note, I will say I think that we have enough questions here to where it'll be difficult to cycle through all of them. So if we wanted to pivot to, like, are y'all fine with pivoting to, like, hand raising, or if you still want to submit one, we can be reading from this. I don't know. I'm trying to think, because some people might not want to, like, say it, like they might like it being anonymous. What do y'all think? Are y'all fine with hand raising, or would y'all prefer to keep it through the submission? Hand raise if you like hand raising. All right, that's pretty solid. All right, let's keep it like this then. All right, we will move from there to, let's see. Yeah, let's talk about just generally, because there's a good few questions on this, and I feel like a lot of them can be broadly discussed by this. How has, like, your social life in general been, like, impacted by your neurodivergence? Like, what are some ways in which making relationships and sustaining them have been difficult? What are some ways in which people have accommodated you in ways that were successful? What are some things you wish people would do? Whatever you kind of want to do with that question. We can cycle through, and then if anybody's not comfortable with it, just say so and you're all good. Lexi, do you want to start with that, or?
Making friends is hard. It is very hard, especially when people don't think like me, because I see myself as someone who's very conscious of the way that other people, of, like, how they feel. I have a problem, and some people really like it, some people really don't. I'm very, very honest, and so if someone asks me something, a lot of the times my parents are like, no, they want you to, like, say something to make them feel better. I'm flat out, I'll tell you if you're wrong, I'll tell you if you're stupid, I'll give you a solution, but a lot of people really don't like that. And then there's also the cases where I just go through these phases where I don't want to talk to you, I don't want to reach out. Low-key, if I don't talk to someone for a while, I kind of forget they exist. I'm working on it.
So it's a very common thing, I will note, though, especially with like ADHD. Object permanence is a big issue, which object permanence is the same, not to say that it's exactly the same as this example, but just to give you an idea of what that is if you don't know. It's like when somebody's younger and like their parent leaves the room and then they forget their parent like exists, basically. It's kind of a similar principle where like once you've not talked to somebody for a minute, you tend to just kind of like your mind has like a limited number of slots of things that it can be remembering at a given time. And then once they get brought back up, it'll all come back. But for a while, it'll be very much like they are just kind of out of sight, out of mind.
And that makes it hard because sometimes you seem like really rude and really mean because I'll go like a week or two and then I'll be like, I'll get a notification or see a story or something and I'll be like, oh my gosh, I was supposed to reach out forever ago. My bad. And yeah, it's kind of embarrassing. But also like, I just feel very awkward around most people, and it's probably more of a me thing than it is anyone else, but I second guess myself a lot. I feel like I fumble over my own words and don't have the right things to say, and I definitely overthink it so much to the point that I do make myself very small and awkward a lot of the times when I'm not comfortable around people. And then it makes them uncomfortable too. And then we're kind of like at a stalemate where it's like, okay, I don't think this is going to work out. Very nice to meet you. Goodbye. And so it's hard. It's very difficult. And I wish I could put it into more words. But like the lived experience of trying to make good friendships and stuff, I have a group of a few very wonderful friends. And I know you don't need a lot of friends. It's good to have a small circle. If you have a big circle, that's good too. But sometimes it does feel very isolating when you're trying to connect with all these other people and you're like, I really don't know how to talk to you and I'm trying my best. And then you make the other person feel like they don't know how to talk to you. And it's just like this continuous and repetitive cycle. And people have to be like very open-minded to kind of stick that cycle out and kind of push through it.
I guess the thing that I can comment on when it comes to autism is the like keeping friends part, because I also struggle a lot with making friends. And then once I have them, it's really weird to keep them. Since I'm a graduate student, I joined a sorority when I was like a sophomore. And so I sort of got what I called like auto friends. Anytime we'd have a new class, I was like, great, I have like 5 new friends. And then everybody that I know basically graduated. And I was like, well, this is fun. Now I'm dealing with all these people that were good friends of mine that are now scattered across the country that it's weird to keep up with because I'm not always so used to like the social norms of how often to text people. Who do you text? I don't have a lot of social media, so it's not like I can just reach out on Instagram or something. So it's weird to sort of manage that. I think the other thing that I would like to talk about is the social effect of having an eating disorder. Because my eating disorder often comes off as being a picky eater. So I very heavily have to vet people before I eat around them, which is very stressful because so many, like eating is such a social thing. It's such a big thing that people do. Potlucks and barbecues and lunch and learns and so many like get-togethers involve eating. And I just have to avoid every single one of them because I don't know if I'm going to have safe foods there. I don't know if people are going to judge me for just eating bread or sides. I don't know in like more professional settings like a lunch and learn. I don't know how I'm going to come across if I am the person in the back eating a bread roll. So it leads to me just flat out avoiding a lot of situations that would have been enjoyable otherwise. And even in situations where I have to eat around people, like eating at work, I'd pack the same thing every day and people would notice and I would be like, well, this is awkward. I don't really want you to comment on the fact that I'm eating the same thing over and over and over again. And like, I guess this sort of reinforced, like, this is why I have to vet people because I want them to understand that this is an actual eating disorder. This is not me being picky or having the palate of like a toddler. Like, I don't want to be like this, I guess. It's a thing that's actively being worked on, and you furthering the stigma is actually making it worse.
So, I did not have a lot of friends growing up. It turns out clinical insanity makes you very off-putting to other children. I was very erratic. I cried a lot. I was socially awkward, and I did not know how to respond to social situations. I experienced a lot of peer abuse. Side note, you guys. So peer abuse is a term for bullying that's meant to like more convey what it is. There's like a meme or a joke where people say like, "Oh, bullying works" or whatever. You should not be saying that. If you would not say like child abuse works, saying bullying works is the same thing. Peer abuse is a form of abuse that mostly targets children, and it can be very triggering for people who have experienced abuse, and it's just offensive, and you should not be making jokes about bullying. So I experienced a lot of peer abuse growing up, and that was very traumatic for me. I have PTSD from that. I don't know if, actually I shouldn't say that. I don't have diagnosed PTSD. I have had emotional flashbacks before, but I shouldn't just say I have PTSD without any diagnosis. I suspect I do. I definitely get flashbacks from it, that I can say. And I ended up in high school. I went to a charter school that was targeted at neurodivergent kids. So it was for kids who needed extra support, but it was mostly autistic kids there, and ADHD kids, and depressed kids, and lots of stuff like that. And I have a really solid friend group from that high school. I have I want to say 6 or 7 people from that high school who I still see regularly every time I'm back home. We go out, we do stuff together, pretty much every day when I'm back home. And it's really great, and I get along with them really well, that we've formed a lot of lasting friendships. And I still have a very solid group from that school. Then I come to Alabama, and I also don't have any friends in Alabama. I have 3 friends in Alabama, and I'm not even close with them as I am with my friends from high school. I don't feel like I can connect with most people here in the same way. A lot of my classmates have what I perceive as distaste for me because I do act weird and off-putting a lot, especially in settings I don't have a lot of control over, and I think that makes it very difficult for me to make connections here. But I did find one setting, one time where I was able to make a bunch of very close friends. But other than that, I think if I hadn't gone to that school, I would not have a support network right now, and that would suck a lot. And I think for a lot of people who are neurodivergent or who do have some of the disorders I have, that they have not been as lucky as me and probably are really suffering because of it.
Yeah. And I will say, because all 3 of you have mentioned it in some way, a really big thing is that uncertainty around what is socially appropriate in a certain situation, right? I know we mentioned how often to text somebody, right? What social rules to follow in the moment, right? A lot of the awkwardness that you would see in somebody who's neurodivergent comes from that uncertainty in a way that I feel framing it that kind of makes sense is if I asked everybody in this room, how would you define a friend? At what point does somebody go from somebody who you are an acquaintance with to a friend, right? I think everybody in here would have a kind of different answer to that. It's different for each person. Even the 2 people in question might feel differently about it. And a lot of people kind of go off of these rules without really thinking too much about it. But for somebody who's neurodivergent, those rules aren't really stated and they don't really come naturally. And that uncertainty leads to a lot of the social issues, a lot of withdrawing from it, a lot of finding social interaction stressful.
Yeah, I've been pretty fortunate to have really good and stable friends. I have the same 3 friends from high school. I have one that I've had since I was in kindergarten. I've been very fortunate of that, in that they don't really judge me for how I act, unless we're in public and I start acting weird and they say something. But them, I wouldn't say anything about because they're my best friends. I've also been very lucky in college. I'm a part of a church group on campus, and being a part of that, I'm feeling really welcome there. I'm also part of another group on campus, and I see them really often, and the first thing I said to them when I met them, I was like, hey, by the way, I have autism. And then like 6 of them were like, hey, me too. And I was like, huh, perfect. We're a group of weirdos. This is great. But it worked out really, really well. I will say I've had friends throughout college that weren't really great when I told them I had autism. It's kind of like they introduce you as like this is my friend and they have autism. And that is how you were introduced to everyone that they meet within like a 10-mile radius. This is my friend and they have autism. And it's kind of like it's my least favorite thing that I've had past friends do, because they will say they have autism, and then automatically anyone you're introducing you, like if you're introducing someone you're like they have autism, that automatically makes the other person think I have to treat them differently. It does not matter whether they have they have something in their mind that's like, oh, autism is whatever. It doesn't matter. They will automatically treat that person differently.
Yeah, and there's a big difference between if you are the one saying it versus if somebody else says it on your behalf, right? Because if you're the one saying it, it's you basically saying, like, trying to list out, hey, this is just how I am in a social interaction. If you're trying to get me to pick up on something, you might as well just say it, like, pretty bluntly, right? Because there's a 50-50 shot that I'll pick up on it, right? It's you saying something along those lines, and it's different for every person. But generally trying to communicate those things beforehand so you both go in with that knowledge. But if somebody else says it, it kind of feels like you are the philanthropy project of that person, right? Like, it kind of gives the idea of they are hanging out with you because it's the morally good thing to do, right? Which, you just want people to hang out with you because they want to hang out with you.
It's kind of like the hey, look at me, I'm doing a good thing because I'm hanging out with someone that acts differently than I do, and I'm making, what is the word? Acclimating them to social culture. Like, that's what it feels like to me personally. It's like you're their friend. They're not your pet. They are your friend. They are a person. Just because their brain fires a little differently doesn't mean you have to tell everyone in the world about it.
Yeah, all right. So since we've been talking about social difficulties, we had a great question that was submitted in the form that was, what does true inclusion look like to you in everyday settings? So that could be social, or it could be other kinds of accommodations, like sensory.
I think just before you're taking your friend into a social situation, be upfront with what that social situation is going to look like. Because I know in past experiences for me, I've been told, hey, we're going to go hang out with people, and we walk in and there's 75 people there, and I'm like, hey, nope, I'm done. I'm out. I can't do it. For me, it's warning beforehand, like, what that situation's going to look like. Is there a place that I can scurry off to if I get overstimulated? I need somewhere else to be for a second. And if not, then I'm going to leave. And also, don't leave your friend in a social situation they've never been in before. Or in a situation with people that they don't really know. And I know that's kind of like generalized, but I know that's like my own thing of like, if I came with you, I want to stay with you because you are the one person that I know here. And I'm not trying to talk to people, because if I'm trying to meet someone new, I'm going to sit there and I'm going to ramble and I'm going to talk and talk and talk until this person gets over it and they just walk off and I have no idea why. So I think also just like be a supportive person and say, like, ask your friend, if your friend is neurodivergent, like, ask them, hey, what can I do to make situations easier and better and more enjoyable for you?
Well, I'm going to pass.
No problem. Do you want to go though, or with that one?
Yeah, for sure. I think the first thing that jumps to my mind is being caring and understanding even without a diagnosis. I have examples of both sides of that. I have had people at my workplace make fun of things that they did not realize were in fact my disability, which I was like, this is an HR violation. If I were to literally just say, you're making fun of a disability. And I've seen like places online where people will make fun of someone and someone will say, oh, well, that person's like autistic. And then suddenly it's like, oh, whoa, hang on, I didn't mean that. And sometimes it's like, okay, there are people that are doing really bad and mean things. I'm not saying don't call that out. What I am saying is like if someone has a little bit of an odd behavior or like really picky eating or is stimming or something, there's no need to call that cringe. There's no need to call that weird. There's no need to call it out. It's just being caring and understanding and recognizing maybe there is a diagnosis behind this, maybe there isn't. It costs nothing to be kind and to just say, listen, I'm just going to let you do your thing. I'm going to accommodate you however you request, and I'm just going to understand that maybe there's something more going on, and I'm not going to make it any worse for you. Just basic, kind, caring, and understanding for everyone.
Yeah, I think a good way of generally framing it is kind of like going in to, even if somebody's not outright told you that they have a diagnosis, is like going in with the assumption that they may, right? That there may be something that they're doing might have, it's probably something personal with them, and to just generally kind of, if it's not impacting you, right? If somebody's like they flap their hands when they get excited, right? They're kind of like fidgeting more. They're like messing with a Sharpie while they're talking, right? Random examples. If that's happening, right? But it's not something that's like affecting you. There's not really, a lot of people kind of get the impulse to be like, hey, stop that, right? Or like sit down or do that. And sometimes that's fine if it's like impacting you, but if it's not, then just because it doesn't fit with then like your idea of like what is just kind of a regular behavior does not mean it needs to be like stopped.
Also, I was gonna say, you said they might have a diagnosis. Even if someone doesn't have a diagnosis, even if they're being weird, if they're not hurting anyone, just leave them alone. Don't make fun of them. Don't treat them weird because of it. Like, you can't control if someone makes you uncomfortable, but you can control how you react to them making you uncomfortable. And if they're not actually hurting anyone, you just leave them alone. Like, it's fine. Like, there's nothing wrong with being weird if it's harmless.
And that's also, and yeah, I do want to clarify, when I said they might have a diagnosis, I meant a condition in general. They may not be diagnosed. Yeah, in general, I feel like that's a pretty applicable way of viewing it. And that's also not to say that, like, you should feel obligated just because somebody is neurodivergent in some way to go above and beyond towards, like being their friend just because of that, right? Because then that's kind of getting into that, like, philanthropy project kind of, like, territory with it, where, kind of just some people vibe with each other, some people don't. But like, just go in with an openness to the idea that this person might just not like do stuff that you think is very normal, but once you get to know them a bit better, you get a lot closer. And if that doesn't happen, it just doesn't happen, right? Lexi, did you? Sorry.
Sorry, I just had something else to say.
No, that's all good. How about Lexi, we'll do you, and then we can,
Yeah.
or we'll circle back to Nadia.
My TLDR is just be a nice person. I mean, it's really not that hard to be kind to anyone. Like, sure, you might look at someone and be like, oh, that's a little weird. But if you don't like it, just leave them alone. They're not hurting you. It's really weird how people are so quick to jump and be cruel to others if they don't agree with something. And I get it. Like, that could be the first... I know sometimes I'll see something and I'll be like, oh... But you just gotta leave them alone. And if you would like to be kind, go ahead, be kind. It costs nothing to be kind. But, like, not if you're gonna do it in a philanthropic, oh, I'm doing this to feel better about myself way.
Don't do it just because you're expecting to be like lauded or you're like, oh, I'm such a good person. Just do it because it's the right thing
I can
to do.
post a story time on TikTok about this later.
Yeah.
Everyone's gonna love this, guys.
I think also, like, this is gonna sound really weird, but like, don't go out of your way to go searching for people that are neurodivergent to be your friend. Because in my opinion, that's worse than like anything. Like, I feel like that's just worse. Like, don't seek out people with neurodivergencies to be your friends. I know it's like have a diverse friend group, and
you shouldn't be like auditioning people for your friend group
Right.
to like meet to like hit the diversity quota. Like just
like don't
like give
don't
people,
have a
like,
checklist
yeah.
that's like, all right, they hit that.
Like, oh, we got one. Woohoo!
It's like don't just be like, this is my one autistic friend and this is perfect and I don't need anything else. That's also horrible. But like, don't go out of your way searching for people with neurodivergencies just because like you want to say you have a neurodivergent friend.
If you find them, just be kind to them.
Yeah.
I feel like the people who do that type of thing are the same people who are like, this is Nadia, my autistic friend.
It is. It
Yeah.
is. It is in fact the same people. I can't even lie to you.
Oh, girl, you're so sweet. You just made friends with everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hated that.
Also,
I'm sorry.
Also, I will clarify based on that is that something that I know that we've discussed in like our like meetings before this is just don't like if you know somebody who is autistic or who has ADHD, right? Don't assume that the next person you meet who has those same things is going to have the same needs, right? Like me and Sebastian are both autistic, right? But we are very, very different people, and we need different things in different moments, right? And I can relate to a lot of stuff with him, but I can't relate to a lot of other things, or them, sorry, my bad.
The other thing is, like, people say autism's like a spectrum, but it's not like a line where it's like you get more autistic and less autistic. It's like a bunch of different spectrums of like different symptoms that a lot of people with autism have, but not everyone has. So there's like, it's like you might have more of this symptom and less of this one, and everyone's just totally different.
Maybe
Yeah,
like
it's
squiggles.
like-
That's a good
Yes,
visual
it's
of
like
it.
10 different spectrums or more.
It's essentially
I don't think I've ever
each
seen this.
particular trait or symptom or whatever you want to call it is kind of its own spectrum. So you don't have it as a strict line, right?
It's not
And-
like a sliding scale that you like dial back and forth. It's
Yeah,
like a
we
bunch
want
of
to
stuff.
assume that it's just a line where you're either like
The
more
most
autistic
or
or
the
less
least
autistic. Yeah, but in reality, that's just something that we came up with because it's easier to process and put down on paper. But the human brain is not easy to put down on paper, so it's just not really accurate. But yeah, just go in with the idea of like, and y'all are fortunately doing this already simply by being here, but just go in with like listening to the neurodivergent person talk about their particular experiences, right? And obviously don't, like there's a lot of resources out there that speak for autistic people, but not with the not with any autistic people involved. Same with ADHD, same with bipolar, same with like with these conditions. Make sure that because obviously talking to professionals is a really important thing to do with it, especially if those professionals have that condition themselves. But in general, don't like make sure you're seeking out the actual people with the lived experiences with it to get the stories from them to figure that out. Because like as great as they are at researching it, if you've not lived your entire life with something, you're not going to be as accurate about it as somebody who has not had a single waking moment without that condition, right?
Yeah, that's why we're having neurodivergent panelists
It is right.
and not like friends of neurodivergent panelists who aren't neurodivergent. Whatever it would be.
Oh no, wait, hold up. Here it is.
I think we need more neurodivergent people in the medical field.
Mhm.
Medical school is not very accommodating of people with different learning needs, and that means a lot of people who like have trouble with like procrastination. If you have ADHD, you have problem with executive dysfunction, people who have problem like adapting to stressful like settings, they kind of get pushed out. Like disabled people in general get pushed out of medical school in the medical field, and then you have a bunch of neurotypical doctors who like don't really understand the lived experiences of neurodivergent people treating them, and that's how you get a lot of like stigma against neurodivergent people in medicine. You get like doctors mistreating patients who are neurodivergent. You get doctors refusing to diagnose people who are neurodivergent because they don't understand the different ways neurodivergence can present. So I think that that medical school and the medical field needs to be more welcoming to neurodivergent people if we want psychiatric treatment of neurodivergent people and medical treatment of physically disabled people too, to improve and be able to treat us better.
That's what you're going into, Jack, right?
That is, yeah. I'm going into clinical psychology, trying to focus on autism and ADHD. So, little flex. So what? Here's a pretty good one. What are some? And we can go down, and if you don't want to answer it, that's all good. But what are some just general misconceptions about any one of the conditions that you have that you wish more people, especially professionals, but just people in general, what you wish they kind of understood better, right? What's something that you think a lot of people assume this and it's just not accurate, and I wish more people heard that correct information?
Well, I have bipolar type 2, which is characterized by more intense periods of depression, longer periods of depression, like in shorter, like hypomania, which is less intense mania, and they usually last for shorter. And I think what a lot of people don't understand about depression specifically, and this applies to people with bipolar, people with other types of clinical depression, is that depression isn't just like, oh, I'm kind of sad, like I had a bad day, I want to cry in my room. Depression is like constant, like there is nothing else. And it's not so much sadness, it's like the absence of emotion, like you just feel totally numb. You're unable to care about anything, you're unable to conjure any sort of motivation or emotion or feeling. You're not able to do anything generally besides lie in bed all day. You're often very lethargic. I think a lot of people, when they hear someone's depressed, they like picture themselves like being sad and crying, and I think that that's what that person does. But that it's really like I think some people might experience it when they're like so emotionally burned out and drained, like temporarily before they sleep or whatever. But for depression, it's just that all the time, and a lot of people just aren't able to conjure the feeling in their mind because they've never experienced it, or the lack of feeling, I guess. And it's just something a lot of people don't understand about why depression is so disabling. I often consider when I was very depressed and I couldn't get out of bed and I was so lethargic I couldn't move, I considered it almost a physical disability. It was like having chronic fatigue. I physically could not get out of bed because I was too tired and my limbs were too heavy. And I think that's something a lot of people don't understand about depression, is that it's a lot more like disabling than people tend to assume it is.
Also, as we move to through this question, I'm going to swap us to the Greek point if you need that, and then after the next response, we will move back to the Q&A QR code. Just wanted to throw it out there. All right.
This is also a good reminder if you came here for other reasons and you needed attendance to collect that. So take a selfie or whatever you want.
All right. Nadia, you look like you want to answer this.
So when I was diagnosed with ADHD, the reason I was diagnosed was because I couldn't stop moving. I was always on the go. But as I've gotten older, I've learned that was like the only thing that tipped anyone off that I had ADHD. It wasn't like I couldn't start a project, and once I started, I couldn't finish one. I was very, very, hyperfixation was a really big thing, when I was younger, but especially as I got older. And I realized every time I would go to my pediatrician, they handed the same exact sheet that asked the exact same questions every single time. And it was like, do you feel like you're driven by a motor? Do you feel like you speak when you're not being spoken to? Do you feel like you speak out of turn? And that was it. That was the basis of all the questions.
Those are all the questions. I'm sorry, I was just listening to that and I was like, oh yeah, that's word for word.
Word for word.
We did not get diagnosed together, but we both were asking.
That's just what they send all the psychiatrists.
Yeah, it's the same.
It's the same piece of paper.
Now, I will say the DSM-5 now is different for ADHD diagnosis, but all the questions are still basically the same verbiage. But I was never asked, have you ever started a task and not finished it? Have you had trouble in conversation? Do you have trouble finishing a thought? Do you feel like you trail off? Like, it's literally, they just think that ADHD was just, I run around a lot and I can't stop. And like, there's so much more to ADHD than that, so they just stuck the stamp of ADHD and said, all right, you're going to answer these questions every single appointment once a month for the next 10 years. Have fun. And it got to a point that I was just answering 0 on all of them so they would shut up. I was like, let me stop answering these questions. And it worked, and they took me off my medication, and I was like, what? I need to go back.
They were like, oh, it's fixed.
And I was like,
It's fixed. We did it.
That's the other thing.
We did it.
That's the other thing, is that no one questioned it.
No one followed up on that.
No one questioned the 3s to the 0s in one appointment. Nobody questioned it, and they just took me off the 60 milligrams of Vyvanse that I was on.
Like cold turkey?
Pretty much.
That's a large dosage to just immediately stop.
Listen, I don't know. I'm 16 in Mobile, Alabama. Dude, they don't do much there.
They did think it was fixed.
They did.
In Mobile, they were probably like, woo! Gonna write a dissertation on this one.
Right. So they took me off the medication and then said, she's fixed. I was not fixed. I went to a different doctor because I couldn't go back to that same doctor and answer the questions correctly again. But it also became the routine that I was used to. And then I was like, there was one appointment they didn't give me this is when my grandparents were probably like, we should probably go get a test for autism. They never did. But there was one appointment they didn't give me my sheet. They didn't do the same thing that they had done every single other appointment for the 10 years before that. And at 16, almost 17 years old, I just melted. I had a meltdown at almost 17. Because I was like, this is not how my appointments go. This is not how this is supposed to be. My routine is completely thrown off, and I was thrown off for the rest of the day. And my grandparents just thought it was a symptom of ADHD, and just thought that she's just quirky. She just does that because I'd been doing that my whole life. And it was just there was a lot of confusion, especially because I wasn't seeing a psychologist. I was just seeing my pediatrician. That's another thing that I wish more people knew, is that a pediatrician should not be the only one seeing your child when they have ADHD or any other neurodiversity.
A general practitioner, just in general, it can be kind of inconsistent because they've got to keep up with general stuff, right? No fault of their own for not being a specialist in this particular thing. But there's a lot of GPs out there who will have misconceptions about something. And then you'll even have because you kind of mentioned it with the autism diagnosis or lack thereof, right? And I was, there's a lot of a general assumption in parents, I feel, that's we don't want to get this diagnosis because we don't want to put this label on our kid. Because we've talked about the other side of that, on how it can be difficult, living with that label. But the opposite end of that is that growing up without any explanation for what's going on, and just knowing that everybody treats you differently and that you have these difficulties that you can't explain, you're gonna come up with the label yourself, and it might not be as nice as the diagnosis.
Yeah, so I have a question because it came up, and you can pass if you want. What is it like to experience a meltdown? Because I feel like a lot of people have misconceptions about that, but you don't have to answer this too personal.
Oh, absolutely. I don't care. I'll answer. So it's definitely it's changed a lot since I was younger. Meltdowns when I was younger, because I also didn't have an autism diagnosis, made me feel really silly, because I we had weekly menus at my back home, and so every single week was the exact same meals, Sunday through Saturday. And if something was messed up, slam doors, saw me on my floor, I couldn't do it because it would stress me out so much, and it would make me so anxious that I would push myself into an anxiety attack almost, of this is not how my life, like, this is not how this is supposed to go, and I'm freaking out, and I don't know how to ground myself, and I don't know what's going on. When I got older, and even, like, now, there are things that still push me to that edge of a meltdown of, like, they're different for everyone, but for me, they just make me very, very angry. And, like, there have been times, like, where I'm, like, sobbing uncontrollably because I have no other way to explain that what I'm feeling, it needs to come out somehow. And normally it's when a routine is messed up or someone was mean to me. Or, like, someone made a joke and I didn't understand it as a joke. Like, I don't pick up on sarcasm at all, so I just think someone's being mean to me, so I just cry. And that just pushes me to anxiety because I don't like crying in public. And then it just pushes into a full-blown, I have to be away from people for like 3 hours because I have to re-regulate my body to, like, figure that out.
Perfect.
Before we move on, did you two, just a reminder, because we've kind of had we've gone into a lot of different experiences from this one. The initial question, just like any misconception about a condition that you have that you feel you wish more people would know. Do either of y'all want to answer that, or would y'all like to move to the next question?
I'll answer it, unless you want.
No comment.
Okay, I'll give one for each of the conditions that I named. So for autism, I think the biggest thing that jumps to my mind is that it is like a disability. I think a lot of people think, because there are levels and we refer to like high support needs versus low support needs, just because someone doesn't have a lot of support needs or need a lot of accommodation doesn't mean that it's not affecting them. Like, I think sometimes when people think, well, I can't see it affecting you, so it's not affecting you, which is absolutely not the case. I think a lot of autistic people work very, very, very hard to make sure that you don't see it. It's the entire point of masking. I'm not going to bring all of my problems and lay them out on the table in front of you because that makes no sense. I feel like a lot of problems that I have are so stigmatized that I'm like, I can't experience these problems in front of people. I can't have social issues, or people won't be friends with me. I can't have issues with like sensory needs, because then people will think that I'm weird. I can't stim a certain way because people won't like hang out with me or want to be around me. So like the thing that I am presenting to you is an algorithm that I have like calculated so that I look like a friend. Doesn't mean that I'm not struggling through things. Doesn't mean that I don't need accommodations. If I ask for something that I have not asked for in the past, doesn't mean I didn't need it in the past. Just means I didn't feel safe enough to ask for it. Maybe I didn't need it in that case. Things change. I mean, it's very varying. Sometimes I have really long days and I'm like, look, I could handle the noise this morning. It's now 7 p.m. and I absolutely cannot. I am drained and I'm tired and I need to remove myself or for you to help me navigate the situation.
I actually do kind of want to comment on what you just said, because I feel like a good analogy I heard at some point about that kind of feeling is like, you know, when you, if any of you have ever gone to a really nice restaurant and realized that like you're super underdressed there, right? You're like wearing like what any of us are wearing here, and it's a place where like everybody's in like suits or something.
I would wear this to a nice restaurant.
See, I feel like yours is fine. I feel like mine would not be fine. But imagine if you're going in my outfit to a very nice restaurant, right? And while you're there, you're going to feel very hyper aware of yourself. You're going to be like, who's looking at me? Who is, what do people think of this? I'm totally not dressed. I want to go. I need to really be careful about how I present now. It's kind of like that, except like just generally all the time through most social interactions, and it becomes more normalized that you are constantly thinking about all these different things that other people are not thinking through when they do social interactions, that they kind of just, it comes naturally. But I feel like that's a decent, would you agree with that analogy, or would you say it's like you would describe it differently?
I think that that's pretty accurate. I think the thing you have to consider is that I'm working through all of that in addition to anything else autism throws my way. So I'm dealing with, am I presenting properly? Am I, looking at you properly? As well as, hey, the lights are like way too bright and I really can't handle that. So stack it all up on top of each other. And if I have no energy, if I've had a really long day, if I've had a long day at work, and I'm like, I just can't do it. In addition, I think the thing I wanted to mention with ARFID is that it's not picky eating. I see that a lot. I see a lot of people stigmatize that a lot. I think the best way that I can describe it is that anytime any food is put in front of me that I don't want to eat, I go into fight or flight. It sucks so bad. Even foods that I really want to try and that I really want to eat, it's still fight or flight. I've seen a lot of analogies. I've seen people say, like, picture someone put like a plate of bugs in front of you and they're actively moving and wriggling, and someone said, well, it's full of protein, it's really delicious, you have to try this. But like with every food, basically. It sucks a lot. I can also say like the sensory issues. A lot of people think like noise or like light. These are things you can see because when people accommodate them, they wear like sunglasses or noise canceling headphones or something. But like sensory issues can happen with any sense, and so the taste or texture or scent or visuals of food can affect someone just as much as like really loud noise. So it's not that I don't want to eat different foods or that I don't want to try different foods. I have a lot of foods that I would love to try. It's just that it's a very stressful experience. I have to prepare a lot ahead of time. I have to prepare foods that I am willing to try, and I have to make sure that I don't do it under stress so that I don't associate foods with stress. It's a long process that I've done a lot of work to get to. And to be labeled as just like a picky eater, I feel like sucks because I've done a lot of work to get to this point, and it's not a choice that I'm making.
And I think that also brings up the fact that a lot of stuff that you would think there's a lot of work that goes on that most people will never end up seeing, and that's not just with neurodivergence, that's just in general, with any kind of issue with like mental health or just mental well-being in general. And I think just going in with that assumption that is just a pretty good thing, just to know that you're only seeing a very small fraction of the life of like even somebody you are closest with, and just keeping that in mind. Lexi, did you want to answer that, or all right, awesome. Let's see. So I think we'll do, how many questions do you think we should do from here? We're at 6:55.
I guess we can like figure it out based on how long.
Oh, all right. Let's see. Okay, yeah. So for those of you with ADHD, which I think actually y'all will remember if you have ADHD or not. I don't need to point it out. What are some of the best coping mechanisms that you found when it comes to like just executive functioning in general? When it comes to starting a project, starting a project or getting it done once you have started it, hyperfixation, that kind of thing. If you don't have a great answer for it, I don't blame you because I could not give great advice on it either. But if there's anything that you do, Nadia.
I've found a couple of things just from living with ADHD my whole life. The biggest thing that I found is that if I know for a fact I have to start a project by a certain time, I'm going to text one of my friends. Like, it takes energy to text one of my friends, or like if one of my friends calls me and they're like, hey, what are you doing? And I'm like, I have to start a project in 3 days, please tell me to do it. And that's helped a lot. And also, like, there's a group on campus that I'm a part of, the Collegiate Recovery Community, and I will go in there, and the first thing they'll say is, what do you have to get done with this week? And then if I'm not done with it by the time I said I was going to be done with it, they're like, all right, you got to get your rear end gear, like, we got to figure this out.
Yeah. That reminds me of, I was going to say that reminds me of, what's it called when you have somebody do work that's not the same as what you're doing, but they're also doing like homework in the same way?
Parallel play.
I
call it parallel play.
I call it body doubling.
Yeah, but I've heard body doubling. I think parallel play might have heard as well.
Year, I think.
Parallel play means something different. It's when you're like sitting in the same room as someone and you're both doing something and you're like enjoying each other's company, but you're not doing something collaborative. I call the studying version of that, I also call it parallel play, because in my view it's the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's not quite the same thing,
yeah.
But
I think for me, having another person with me when I'm doing a project, I get way too distracted.
That's also fair.
Especially if they're a friend of mine. I'm going to sit there and yap I'm not gonna do my project. I'm just not, because I don't want to. And it's less of an I don't want to and more of a I can't find the energy to actually get started. Once I get started on a project, it is my whole personality as soon as I get started with it.
Yeah, I think a really important thing that a lot of people don't know because it's such an unconscious process is how big of an impact dopamine has on whether or not you can like have the motivation to do something, right? Every single person in this room, regardless of how much willpower you have, if you don't have the dopamine flowing through your brain to do something, you're going to sit there thinking about how you need to do that thing, but you're not going to do it, right? And that's something that I feel a lot of people don't really realize how impactful that is as a basic thing that goes on in our brains that nobody sees.
So before I got on Adderall last semester, and before that, I would just kind of sit there not doing the thing until eventually, usually like the day before the deadline or even a few hours before the deadline, the stress of not doing the thing would override the pain of having to do the thing, and then I would do it because I was so stressed about not doing it because it was close to deadline. Sometimes the stress would never override not doing it, and then I'd have to get the extension, sometimes multiple extensions for one assignment. Now that I'm on Adderall, I'm on instant release Adderall, I just take it as needed, pop a pill, think really hard about doing it, and then I somehow get the motivation to do it because the dopamine in my brain's working, and it's not like I suddenly have the urge to do something, right? So, and it's whatever I need to do.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
I also want to point out something. It is not just schoolwork.
Yeah.
It is not just like a crochet project that I started and never finished. Like, it's like laundry, and in some and sometimes it's like general hygiene. Like
Sometimes it's showering, which
Because-
is not something people talk about a lot.
yeah, because like showering is an overstimulating process to me. It takes a lot of mental. I have to sit for like 20 minutes and like actually think about the fact I have to turn on the shower. I have to actually get wet, and then once I'm wet, I'm like, okay, I'm not getting out now because I don't want to be cold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like
once you're in like the box, it's like, oh, okay, as soon as I get out of the box, it's gonna suck all over again.
yeah, and so it's like you avoid that. I avoid laundry because it is a lot of work because I live where my apartment is set up is I have to walk my whole basket, all my clothes, all the way to the washer, load it, pick up my giant thing of laundry detergent, which is on me. I shouldn't have bought a giant thing of laundry detergent. But like it's a whole process and it takes forever. Dishes are the same way because wet food, no. Mm-mm.
It's so gross when you have to like scrape it.
I don't even want to talk about it anymore.
Yep.
But like
The textures of washing dishes is like the sponge too. Like the textures of washing dishes is not something that people would. It's really bad. It's hard to.
but it's like it's not just starting a project and not finishing it. It's also like not starting things that you know you need to do. Like, and it's not a laziness thing because that's what a lot of people say. It's like, oh, well, if you would just not be lazy, if you would just go and do it, like if you would just do it, it'd be fine. It's like there is this like yelling in your brain that's like you have to do this. If you don't do this, like whatever. But your body will not get up and react to it.
And the solution on paper feels like it's an incredibly simple one, right? You want to do better in classes, go to class, right? If you want to, like, I was supposed to, like, before getting here, I was supposed to be clean shaven, right? But I was playing Cookie Run Kingdom, and so I spent the entire time thinking, like, oh man, I really need to do that because it's getting closer to the thing I'm about to have to go to, right?
Avonlea, this is your fault.
Exactly, yeah. But
Calling you out.
Right now.
Yeah, of course you are, you freak.
but like the entire time,
Sorry, that was
Oh,
mean. I was joking. I was being sarcastic.
you're all. Well, actually, I shouldn't. Sorry. Anyways, yeah. Basically, the idea is that like you know something is more immediately stimulating to you. Your brain knows that, and as a brain that is deprived of dopamine, right? The long-term ramifications of it, even though you know them and you're going to constantly remind yourself of them, they are not going to motivate you to actually do the task, right? And it's not enough. You have to find these strategies of like, if I want to get homework done, don't take my shoes off when I get home, or else that puts me in relaxing mode, right? Don't start a single thing that you might enjoy more than the thing you need to do for even a second, because then you're breaking out of that, and then starting the next thing that you know you're not going to enjoy is virtually impossible.
I will say, one thing just like that worked for me, but may feel degrading to another person, is that like I have great roommates, they're wonderful, they're two of my favorite people in the world. However, they'll send like passive aggressive texts, but that is the only thing that will actually make me get something done. Is if someone's like, this is disgusting, like please do this, like whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But when I was younger, my parents would be like, if you do this, I promise I will buy you M&Ms, like, or like I will get you a cookie, like, you know, the thing that's like, you want a cookie? Yes I do, I will do anything for a cookie. And like that's how things would get done. I know to some people that makes them feel like, as an adult, getting told if you do this I'll give you a cookie, like getting told that to some people is like, that feels like you're making me a 4-year-old child. But also telling yourself, if you do this, we can go and get ice cream.
See, the thing is, when I do that, I'm like, everyone's like, yeah, but we could just go get ice cream now, though. And they go get
Right,
ice
like
cream.
it
It
doesn't work for everyone.
It
It's
doesn't
not
work for me anymore. I'm like, because if your parents saying that, like you're like 7, you can't take yourself to get ice cream. And then I can take myself to get ice cream. I'm like, yeah, but like what? I can just go get ice cream now. Like, what am I doing? So I can't go get ice cream instead of doing my work.
Yeah,
Or like,
that's one of the issues with coming up with the strategies is that you're constantly trying to plot against yourself, because you know that when you get to the moment of actually doing the thing you need to do, the in-the-moment version of you is going to find some workaround to not do it, right? And that's something that you have to account for. You have to try to be like, okay, there's no way, like it's like you're playing like chess against yourself, right? There's no way I'm going to be able to get around this perfect plan I have, and then you'll find a way to outsmart yourself in the moment.
it's also like, if someone, like if you need to get a project done and you tell someone, hey, I need to get a project done, and they're like, okay, I'll text you. If that doesn't work for you, like say like, hey, that doesn't work for me. Like, it's all a communication thing, because you're gonna outsmart yourself 9 times out of 10 if you try to make yourself do something. But if someone you like a little bit is telling you to do something and they're on your butt about it, more than likely you might do it. But again, like Jack said earlier, like, we don't have any, like I don't have a full answer for this, because I mean it's different for literally every single person. What works for me is not going to work for everyone.
Yeah, and even
Clearly.
what works for you might not work for you. Like,
It doesn't work 100%
it's got to be
of
a
the time.
constantly novel solution, or else it's not going to be motivating.
Yeah.
I feel like we are coming up near the end, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to have, we're just going to kind of go down the line, and we can have like a last, if there's anything that like a closing kind of, a closing thing about, maybe it's a specific condition you have, maybe it's just neurodivergence in general. But if there's anything that you would really want, if there's only one thing that they took away from everything that's been said by you here, what's one thing you would want more people to know from this? And if anybody has one already, you can raise your hand. Sorry, nobody likes hand raising. But, and this can be like a misconception, which we did kind of talk about. This can be just something that's for people who might be neurodivergent, just anything that you would want more people to know about. Nadia.
I would say just because someone has a neurodivergency does not mean that that is their identifier. Like, my identity is not that I have autism. And I don't think putting that label on someone and saying, this is your identity and this is how I think about you, no one wants that. Like, it's like saying, I've been staring at you the whole time, so I'm sorry. It's like,
I have too. It's just you're in the convenient position to where like
it's like, this is my friend that has glasses and brown hair, and that is the only thing that anyone knows about her. It's the same thing saying, this is my friend, they have autism.
So for me, I would say, like a lot of people, like especially for neurodivergence, where you can't always like see on the outside that someone is disabled, they attribute like some sort of if someone can't do something because they're depressed, like if or have ADHD or anything that like it affects executive function and makes it difficult to do basic tasks, people assume it's laziness or that they're just not trying hard enough to do the thing, to get up, to brush their teeth, to wash the dishes, to shower, to do their essay, and that like just because you can't see that someone's disabled doesn't mean that they have the ability to do something. Like a lot of disabilities are invisible like that. If someone was like paralyzed, you were like, oh, they're just not trying hard enough to walk. Like that's not how that works. That's not how anything works. So if you have if your brain functions differently so that you aren't able to do something consistently, or it takes a lot of work, someone might only be able to walk with braces. I might only be able to do my essay with Adderall or with like excessive support. It's like the same type of thing, and it's not just that someone's not trying hard enough. It might be that they're physically incapable of doing it, or it might be that they don't have the right medication or support or accommodations.
And I think that's also just on that really quick. I'll add is we neurodivergent people don't need. You have a lot of like autism is my superpower, ADHD is my superpower. It's like it doesn't feel like it some days, right? Like there are things about myself that are inherently how they are because I have these things, and so I do ultimately like the fact that I'm like this. But it certainly is not like every day I'm like, this is just a huge advantage that makes everything great. Mm-hmm. Calling it a disability is not like...
Disability isn't a dirty word.
Yeah, it is not like a derogatory...
There's nothing shameful about being disabled.
Yeah, the way it's like society enables certain people and disables certain people, right? It's not really anything... It's just generally acknowledging difficulties that somebody goes through. Did you have anything yet, or?
Yeah, I think what I want to say specifically to neurodivergent people, but maybe this will help anyone in the room. Because I am in graduate school, I just want to say that you're going to make it, because that's not a thing that anyone sort of told me, and that's not a thing that I guess got told in like a neurodivergent like lens. A lot of my college experience was learning about autism, learning that it was in fact a disability, because when I first heard that, I thought, I am not disabled. I'm here to tell you that I am actually disabled. That's absolutely what that is. I had to do a lot of work with myself. I ended up in an internship that I was just really unhappy with. I really didn't like the people there. They were not at all affirming. Didn't like the work, but really hated the people. I spent a lot of time senior year going through workforce after workforce, trying to figure out what interviews felt right, what jobs felt right, and none of them felt right, and a lot of that was autism. I just didn't connect with people. I didn't connect with people interviewing me. I didn't connect with people at the jobs. Even when jobs would have like informal settings where they would have just like here's a lunch where you're just going to talk to the people that you're going to work with, we're just going to sort of do like a vibe check kind of thing, I just did not like communicate with them very well, and I was like, this all feels weird. I feel like I was told so many neurodivergent people are in STEM, and I just don't see that. And so it took a long time for me to figure out what works for me. And at the end of this, I figured out that probably academia works best for me, because it sort of revolves around, I'm going to have my own little research area, and I'm going to sit in my little corner and do my little research with a bunch of other people all doing the exact same thing. And I was like, that feels good. Feels like I had some professors that were maybe neurodivergent on their own. And I saw the amount of joy that they brought to their work, and I was like, I want to bring that kind of joy to my job. So... like autistic people, neurodivergent people in general, everybody has their own little niche. It'll take a little bit to find, but you can find it, and you will make it beyond college and in whatever workforce you decide to enter.
Sorry, that was very nice. Lexi, do you have a closing thing?
I wish. Sorry, my brain's burnt out.
You are all good. I was very invested in that, and then I forgot. I was like, oh man, that is because I'm coming up later in college, so I'm like, oof. Once you get further, every senior is kind of like getting, I'm ready to be out of here. But when you're a neurodivergent, it can be like you know.
Change is
Yes.
stressful.
So very, well, that, and then there's also like the lack of change, because I'm like, oh man, I have done, like, yeah, these classes are a different topic each time, but it is the same format over and over. So yeah. Anyways, so, all right, so you're kind of burnt out by this point with, all right.
A lot of talking, I understand.
That's
It's
so
hard.
fair. It has been about 2 hours of
I need
speaking.
to go sit somewhere.
Sit in the corner.
I think I'm ready.
Thank you guys all for coming. It's means a lot to be able to do this and to be able to like share this information with just really kind of anybody. Give our speakers like an opportunity to voice this stuff to other people on its own is just a really big deal. That is very impactful, and it takes a lot of bravery for them to be able to come up here and do this, especially without a table. I feel like y'all are super like exposed, right?
I can't even lean
Like, I
over
can't.
and have my fingers.
Yeah. But
I can't play Cookie Brian.
yeah, thank you guys for coming. Thank you, speakers, for coming over here, volunteering to do this, and for doing something that does not come naturally to a lot of neurodivergent people, which is getting in front of a lot of people and speaking, right? And yeah, that's everything we have. We've got the attendance point here if anybody still needs that. It's been up there for a sec though, so I assume everybody's gotten that needs it.
Jack.